Today's episode is sponsored by Anchor. My cousin recommended this app to me, and I thought this was an app about boats or anchors for sale or something, but Anchor is a completely free and easy way to start your own podcast. All of the tools are laid out for you from recording to editing to even adding voice messages from listeners. You can also podcast from your phone or computer. Wait, there's more. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more services. No tedious individual uploading and sharing. And the best part, you can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. That is the free Anchor app, or go to anchor.fm. Hello, everyone. This is Frank Anthony, and welcome to Let Me Be Frank. Today's episode, we're going to be talking about eating disorders. We'll be focusing on anorexia, binge eating disorder, and bulimia. And we are joined today by a very special guest known as Stephanie Lynne. Say hi, Stephanie.
Hi.
All right, so let's just jump into this since we finally connected and we're doing this again.
Yes.
So yeah, I'll have you start. What is a personal experience you have with eating disorders?
Okay. Yeah. My experience with eating disorders has basically been something I've struggled with my entire life. It started with me being just a chubby kid and, not really realizing that I had a weight problem. I wasn't like morbidly obese, but I was definitely overweight. But where everything really started was when I was 13 years old in a freshman health class. And my health teacher was saying that at least half of us would probably grow up to be overweight. Some of us would be obese, and some of us would struggle with heart disease or high cholesterol or just generally being unhealthy. And I remember sitting there laughing to myself and thinking, wow, these idiots in my class are going to grow up and be unhealthy. Ha ha ha, that won't be me. And it dawned on me, I'm overweight right now. I'm already the statistic. And that really bothered me. I've been overweight my whole life, but it didn't really hit me till then. So that very day I went home, I went to my father. I said, hey, I want to lose weight. I want to be healthy. So that day, he pulled out the NordicTrack from the basement, which is basically like a big ski machine. I would do that every morning before school. And I ended up losing a bunch of weight that way. He taught me how to eat better and just general tips, normal tips that anyone would know, eat less food, high protein. We ate a lot of beans and rice, for example. That was a pretty safe meal. And I lost the weight. I lost like 50 pounds. I was 200 when I started. So I was 13 years old at 200 pounds. And in a couple of years, when I was a junior, I was 150 pounds, which should have been fine. I'm very tall. I'm almost 6 feet. So that's perfectly healthy, perfectly acceptable. But I don't know if it's because I dieted when I was so young, but it was not good enough. And I still felt fat. I still felt like I was, that same 200-pound chubby girl. So I constantly was, still trying to work out more, still trying to restrict more. But it wasn't that crazy until I hit my freshman year of college. And that's where I really, really got aggressive with it. I started calorie counting. I started working out at least an hour to an hour and a half a day, pure cardio. the stair machine at Planet Fitness. I would make sure to burn at least 700 calories. I was only eating 1,500.
And
And
we'd work out together too.
we would, and Frank, we did the same machine. We work out right next to each other. We're, if anything, we're pushing each other. And I would eat 1,500 calories. Anything less was a good day. And if I hit 1,800 calories, then the following day I better only eat 1,000 to make up for it. So I was netting probably less than 1,000 most days because I was burning the 700 calories and not eating those back.
Hmm.
And I was able to get to 126 pounds at 6 feet, which is incredibly skinny. I was very skinny. My legs didn't touch when my feet were together. From the side, I practically disappeared. But I still felt fat, and I wanted to be 115 pounds, which is insane for my height.
It's like model
And
thin.
it, I don't even think there are malls that weigh more than that. Like that is just ridiculous. I would have been a complete, like, one of those crazy skeleton people. You know, yeah, that would have been so bad. But eventually I couldn't keep up with that, and we can go more in depth as we progress. But yeah,
Definitely.
eventually, binging started, and then I would purge to compensate with exercise. For anyone who doesn't know, bulimia isn't just throwing up; it's any activity or behavior you use to erase eating food. So for me, it would be if I binged, I would then work out excessively. I was already working out like crazy, but it'd be even more amped up to make up for a binge. But yeah, that's my experience, and it's gone on for over 10 years. So yeah,
Wow.
it's been a it's been a lifelong thing
Yeah, and it definitely, unfortunately, it can be a lifelong thing for many people.
for sure.
It's something that can also just, one day you're struggling with it, and then the next day you don't feel it, and you might not feel it again, and which is an amazing feeling. And I know I thought I had that feeling at one point, probably some point last year, but then I started noticing I was getting some thoughts again. So it's just, yeah, something that I'm continuing to battle, and we're going to get more into that stuff too. My so with my personal experience, this so as a kid, I it didn't really affect me too bad. I don't want to say. I was a pretty thin kid. I was in between 80 and 90 pounds. And and we grew up so Stephanie and I grew up together since childhood, and we would swim together all the time. And I know I played a lot of basketball. I don't think we played a lot of video games at that point. It was we were outside like 90% of the time.
We were, yeah, even though like I was a chubby kid, I was still active and like fit, like
Yeah,
we were outside all day.
we were. Yeah, I remember too in the pool. I
Yeah.
remember my mom had timed it one time. I think the longest we were in the pool it was like 12 or 14 hours.
Oh, we wouldn't get out
No.
because why would we?
So, yeah, so I mean, compared to kids today where there's so much more technology, and maybe they're not outside as often as kids were 10, 20 years ago. We
Hmm.
were, yeah, I mean, I would say I was an active kid for the most part. Horrible diet. My mom would give
Hmm.
us awful food to eat. Give us good tasting food, but not nutritional food, unfortunately. So a mix of that and getting older, and something that I had mentioned in the last episode was my uncle passed away when I was around 10, 11 years old, years ago, already 17 years ago, which is crazy. And that my family and we all started gaining a lot of weight from that. We were depressed because he was very young. He was only 30 years old. And I still was, it's the first death I ever faced. So that was something that I was struggling with coping with, because I didn't know, like, a family death, like someone so close to me passing away yet. That was the very first one. And then, as time went on, of course. But I yeah, mixed with an unhealthy diet, I was starting to, I wasn't outside as much, I wasn't moving around as much, so it was causing obvious weight gain. And by the time I hit ninth grade, I was 200 and something pounds. I don't remember the exact number. And I was getting severely bullied in ninth grade for my weight and a couple other things, but definitely the weight was a big one. And then the summer after ninth grade, I just couldn't take it anymore with the bullying. So I worked out. This was what I would say this was the beginning of me noticing some eating disorder behaviors, because I every single day for a month I would dance 5 to 8 hours a day. And I was starting the only good thing with this was I was starting to cut out certain things like soda and not eating as much junk food. So my diet was slowly getting a little bit better, but the way I was working out was so extreme for my body. It was literal like 5 to 8 hours a day of strict cardio pretty much because it was dancing.
Oh man, yeah.
And I went all the way down because like I was above 200 and I went all the way down to, I'll never forget, 123 was the exact number in 1 month.
Oh wow.
So a good, yeah, it was a good 80 pounds, like 70, 80 pounds. And yeah, it started. So that was the beginning of that, my personal experience. And then it started to graduate into like as Steph and I got older and we went to the gym together and our extreme working out, like she said, with burning so many calories on the treadmill or stair machine or anything cardio at the gym, because we hadn't. It took us a little bit to incorporate some weight stuff.
Hmm.
So, what were what do you think what do you think were some factors that triggered your eating disorder behavior?
Well, I think the biggest issue for me is that I just was so I couldn't see what my body really looked like. I mean, everyone would tell me, "Oh, you look so skinny, you're so pale." I mean, my mom thought I was anemic for the longest time, and I honestly probably was. I'd stand up and like, my eyes would blacken for a few seconds, your blood pressure just instantly drops, you
Yeah.
felt out of breath. And but yeah, I mean, I once said I was skinny and I would look in the mirror and I would still see fat on my stomach. I would think my legs were too jiggly. It was never enough. And I don't know if it's because we dieted when we were kids or whatever, but I mean, like growing up and restricting nutrition when you're already not eating a nutrient dense diet to begin with, I think that messes with your mental image of yourself. I mean, I think it's important to remember that an eating disorder is a mental illness,
Yes.
and if you're not eating an adequate diet for your brain, I mean, you're not even giving yourself a fighting chance when you're dealing with a mental illness. So that's kind of, I think that cycle starts there in the brain and with the food choices that you're making. So I think that was the biggest factor of why I just couldn't see myself the way I really looked. And I focused on like the one or two flaws that I had. And like, don't get me wrong, when I was skinny, I wore whatever I wanted. I felt good for the most part. It would just be like, oh, I'm almost there. I'm almost at my goal. I'm almost there. I'm okay now. I don't want to say I was happy because I wasn't, but I definitely preferred being that skinny to being 200 pounds. So it's a hard line to walk. You're not happy, but you still feel better off, if that makes sense. And I think the biggest issue is just not understanding nutrition, not understanding how to actually lose weight in a sustainable way. And I think just the body dysmorphia, that is the biggest factor that triggered me to keep going and going and going. And then the next part of my eating disorder behavior, which is the binging, it was the anorexia, and then the binging came. So, but yeah, to answer the question, so I don't like segue too much, is it was definitely, I think, a lack of nutrition and the body dysmorphia.
All right. Yeah, I definitely I definitely agree with all of that. And I know we didn't have all the same, we didn't go through the same exact experience with eating disorders, but I know we had a lot of similar thoughts, especially never being happy with the body that we were currently in and thinking that it was just never good enough. The My stomach and my legs, even though I was such a low weight, they always looked fat in the mirror, regardless of
Mm-hmm.
they weren't. Eventually, I had seen through like, oh wow, like they're not like they are thin, but it took me a long time to be able to see the difference and that
Yeah.
and get through that definitely that hazy judgment, which obviously connects to this whole thing being a mental illness. It completely changes your perception on, and according to it changes your perception on yourself with this case. And I forgot to mention before too, my main eating disorder that I want to say I was struggling with was anorexia nervosa disorder, which obviously a lot of people have heard about, like anorexia and someone being anorexic. And I want to say some of my factors connected to all this. Like I love my family to death, but I think just growing up and certain actions and certain things that were said, I think is what pushed me more into committing some of these behaviors. For example, growing up, we would have family dinners, and my grandma always encouraged everyone to eat as much as they can. She's Portuguese, so she was Portuguese, so she was all like manja manja, everything.
Yeah. Oh, I know. She fed me good.
She fed us well. No.
She really did.
And so yeah, so I mean, that's how we all kind of had some of that extra weight because it's not like, I mean, I don't know 100% what all my other family members were doing working out wise, but I know I didn't really have anything in place. I was still younger and stuff and didn't grow up in a athletic family per se. So so there was this whole idea of eating and everything. And then when someone like myself looked a little bit too big compared to what society viewed as someone being overweight, then people, then it was all about, oh well, like you should lose some. And
Hmm.
I and I remember getting a gift of workout DVDs, and I don't know, it definitely it hurt. I mean, I used them. and then, and then, I mean, not,
I remember borrowing the Sean T one, so I borrowed
yeah,
them too from
he
you.
he's really good. He has a lot of different programs, so I give him that. He
Hmm.
is really good at working out. And mine specifically were hip hop abs.
Yeah, I
But he
remember.
does insanity and a bunch of different. He does some this these ones weren't as difficult as some of his other ones, but it's still like it still got you moving. And then I graduated into doing other moves that were a little bit more intense, where I was moving extra, and that's how I burned off even more. And the lack of eating for
Oh yeah.
because I wasn't eating much. I was drinking a lot of water, but
Hmm.
yeah, I would say because then when I did lose the weight before, like going into 10th grade, then certain comments I would hear, mostly that was like a rumor that started up in my family, was that I was doing drugs, which obviously was not true. But now it always I think it messed with my mindset a little bit because and it added to this whole, I already didn't feel good about myself. And it added to the whole, oh, no one else thinks I'm good enough either. That like when I was bigger, I wasn't considered good enough. Now I lost the weight and I have a problem. Still, like I still have a problem, just a different one.
Well, I can actually relate to that, and you remind me, like I come from a big family. I have five siblings, one sister, four brothers, so there's six of us. And we always give each other the business, it's in good faith. And my brothers nicknamed me the bulimic giraffe because I'm
Wow.
tall and skinny. Yeah, but they didn't know I was actually suffering from bulimia. They're just making fun of me and I would laugh, but like they had no idea that in secret, like, you know, I'm I would binge and then I would go to the gym and purge through exercise. So they had no idea. So it's just kind of funny, like, in your case, your family completely missed the mark, but like my family completely called it out, not even knowing they did. It was just a
Mm.
joke.
Yeah, and I think people thinking of both of our families, I don't think they probably didn't think of it as much of a big deal, where it's something we remember for years.
Oh yeah. I mean, it didn't bother me actually. It kind of made me feel proud when they said that because like, oh, well, they must perceive me as skinny, so
Yeah.
that's good. So I actually took a lot of pride in
Mm.
that
It
with my
it
twisted
validated the
mind.
behavior.
It sure did. It was working.
Well, on that note, I think we're going to take a quick commercial break. So we will be right back. And we are back. So we left off we were talking about some factors that potentially triggered certain eating disorder behaviors. So, Steph, was there any eating disorder behaviors that you kept secret from everyone else?
Yeah, definitely. There are two that come to mind, and
Okay.
this one isn't as serious, but it's kind of funny. But in the moment, it's like super. It was super shameful for me. But one thing I would struggle with when I started binging is that I would steal food because when you decide to binge, like when you finally give into binging, you have to do it. Like the moment your brain is like binge, 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 you're like, okay, yeah, yeah, binge boys, I'll binge. But you might not have food. You have to go steal it because you have to binge now. And I would steal either from my family members, I would steal from my husband's family. I would steal my husband's food sometimes. I would be I would be trying to eat quote unquote good, and he would get a bunch of snacks for himself. And then I would eat all those things when he would be at work. I would, we used to live with his mother and siblings. Now we live on our own, but when we were living there, his mom would like cook food from the family and I would steal way more leftovers than I was entitled to. I would steal cereal. I would steal cookies that she might have brought home for work for everyone. Um, and even back at home when I lived with my immediate family, I mean, I would, there'd be like popsicles in the freezer and I'd like steal them, or there'd be cookie dough that my brother would use to make cookies with because he loved to bake cookies during holidays, which is funny because Frank knows him. He's very masculine and tall, but like if it was a holiday, he would bake those cookies for everyone. um, and I would like eat the cookie dough, and then because I what the first few years of me binging, I hadn't gained any weight, so people wouldn't assume in my immediate family that was me. So there's no worse feeling than someone discovering their food is missing and trying to figure out who did it. And they're blaming my other siblings over me, and there's a huge fight, and you just feel so shameful because you
Yeah.
already feel bad about binging, but because you feel so bad about the binge, you cannot own up to it, so you feel shame for two different reasons. So that was a quirky thing, I guess. I mean, it's obviously wrong, but it fails in comparison to the other secret that no one knows about, which is I attempted at least 10 times to make myself throw up after a binge. Thank God I was too squeamish every time. I mean,
I hate
throwing up,
them.
yeah, I couldn't make myself do it. And I would try. I would try for a long time, but I couldn't do it. But I've tried that 10 times because eventually, because you think every binge is the last binge. You tell yourself that lie every time. So it's like, oh, I just binge. If I just throw up one time, I mean, that was the last binge anyway. So I'll just throw up one time. That will erase it. I'll start on a clean slate. Oh my God. I am so grateful that I never could do it because I would have been in such a worse cycle than I already was. But
Hmm.
yeah, those were the two secrets that no one except people very close to me know about. Two things that I hid.
Well, thank you for sharing them today.
Oh yeah, no problem. I mean, when you come out the other side, you want to talk about it, shed light on it, and you want to hope to help somebody.
Oh, definitely. There's people out there that are going through now what we went through before.
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely think it's important to, sorry, post sneezing in the background.
Oh, poor Pooch.
Um, oh, is he choking? Nope, he's good. Okay, so to shed a little light, but yeah. So I mean, mine something that I never told anyone. It goes back to family holiday parties, and I only did this. I want to say I've only done this a couple of times, and I would never do it again. But I think it was me trying to experiment with trying to get certain perks while getting results that I wanted. And so at the family parties, besides all the wonderful, like, food and stuff that was there, there was a bunch of desserts and baked goods as well, as most parties have. And I wanted to try them all and I wanted to eat them all, but I didn't want the consequence of gaining all that weight after, like, that so many people do after the holidays, whether it's Thanksgiving or Christmas Eve or whatever. So I would grab all the desserts and I would take a bite of each one, but I wouldn't swallow it. I would kind of hide off and spit it out and throw it away somewhere that someone wouldn't immediately find it, type thing. And
Mm-hmm.
I was hiding that behavior because I knew it wasn't right. I knew it wasn't the right thing to do. But my mindset at the time was I want to, like, I want a perfect body, whatever perfect meant in my mind, and I want to eat the cake too, no pun intended. Not eat the cake and get the
Oh,
taste of.
it's funny you say that because I've done that too. I mean, like there'd be times where I'd be cooking for someone else and I would like want it because I had already reached my calories for the day or something. So I would like, like macaroni and cheese, for example, like I'd be making mac and cheese for somebody and I would, take a couple bites of it and then spit it out in the trash because I was obviously starving. I know better now, but yeah, I've done that too. So I completely relate to that impulse. I know exactly what you're feeling.
And speaking of knowing exactly what I was feeling, because we because we grew up together for so many years, and then on top of it, we both ended up having these similar-ish experiences. Do you think that in some ways we enabled or validated each other's behavior?
Yeah, no, I can definitely go into that. Yeah, I think the biggest we validated was like working out
Yeah.
and being active. I mean, like we went to the gym together any chance we could. We work out right next to each other. And I mean, we even would, we would then go on like these long 6 mile walks, which I like the walks. The
The
walks
walks were good.
themselves weren't the issue. The walks were good. Like, don't get that part like twisted. The walks were good, but it's on top of everything else. Like we both subconsciously knew those walks were like putting us over. It's like, oh, we already worked out 90 minutes at the gym, and then we just did the 6 mile walk. And that's a lot of activity, and we weren't eating food back at all.
Oh, definitely.
And,
Sorry, I
oh,
just want to slide in. Remember, because I definitely agree with that mindset only because, well, not only, but because do you remember we would walk in extreme temperatures, and I remember
oh
sometimes
my
below
God,
30
yeah,
degrees, and
yeah, we
we
did.
still had to do the 5 miles at least minimum.
Oh yeah, yeah, because okay, we'd like walk up to this fire hydrant, which was like, do you remember how long that was? Because there's like a circle we could take or we could go back,
It
and the
was,
circle made it the full 6 miles.
I want to say it was 2.5.
Yeah, okay, so yeah, so the circle added that last mile. So yeah, we'd go to that freaking fire hydrant minimum.
Yeah,
Yeah, that is so funny. Yeah, we would go in extreme temperatures. We would go when it was really cold too. We've walked in the snow.
yeah.
Like we'd be like, walking on the snowbanks that the snow plows like put over the sidewalk. And I remember there'd be times where, like sometimes there'd be like a couple weeks we didn't hang out. So that first walk, we both have blisters on our feet, but we'd still do it.
Yeah.
So I remember that too. But even if I wasn't disordered, I really liked those walks because they were fun. So we
They're
probably
good
would have done
walk,
those anyways. Yeah, they were always so fun.
but the working
Um,
out part.
the working out part in the gym, we really pushed each other, and we ate our meals together.
Yeah.
I mean, I definitely when I was hanging out with you, like, and honestly, if I was eating in front of anyone, I wanted to uphold like I'm this like health chick, like I'm healthy, I don't slip,
You
like
did well.
I thank you. So, and of course when we're hanging out, I was on top of my calories. I wasn't about to overeat my calories. And I want people listening to understand I did not look at food in terms of food. It was just calories. So anything was on the table as long as it fit my calories.
And I was so nervous about upholding this certain because of course I wanted to eat what we considered healthy and this and that, but I knew I also wanted a donut or something on the side. Like
Oh
I knew I
yeah.
wanted to slip, but because I was like, oh, she's not slipping. Like I can't slip. I can't be the weak. I can't be the part of this boat. Like I have to, and yeah, I think that's what really pushed us because we didn't want to be the one to like make the mistake or fall
Yeah.
off the wagon we already fell off of a while ago.
Yeah, no kidding. It's like, oh, Frank's eating that donut. He's not strong enough.
Judgment, yeah. Seriously though, I and I hate to admit this, but because I don't did you say I don't remember if you said earlier that binge eating was like your main eating disorder.
Yeah, I would say like I can give a timeline if you want after this after we discuss this question because I mean I can go way more I didn't really go into like the evolution of my eating disorder. But yeah, I mean I was anorexic for a few years and then the binging started in 2014 and it continued until literally just last summer.
Because because I
So,
will admit when I did see a couple of those binges, I remember at least one of the times it almost made me feel a little better because I wasn't slipping. And even though
yeah.
I could have definitely been a better supportive friend instead, but it was almost like a pride in myself instead.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, that reminds me, there would be times when I started binging, there would be times where I would be hanging out with you and you had a lot of snacks and stuff in your house.
Yeah.
And there were a
Thanks,
couple times
mom.
where I said, I know. There were times where I said, screw it, I'm gonna binge. While I'm hanging out with you because because up until that moment, I would have been like arguing with myself the whole time. You and I externally would have been having fun, and I would have been at the same time been arguing with myself. And finally, it's like I just want to hang out with Frank and be present. I'm sick of arguing. I'm just gonna binge. So yeah, there were some times where I did binge in front of you, and obviously during the binge, you're like high. You don't have a care in the
Yeah.
world. It's awesome. But then afterwards, I feel so shameful. It's like, man, like, I can't believe I did that. And, one thing comes to mind is the veggie chips that we ate together.
Yes, we are
We ate like a
so sick.
huge, yeah, we ate a huge bag together. Like we both kind of were like, screw it today, and we both did it, and we got so sick eating all those veggie
I
chips.
cannot forget, and I know we were playing Naruto on the Wii, and
We were.
and I cannot forget that pain. We felt like that awful sickness. Like it was really bad. I
Yeah.
mean, because I don't get like food poisoning a lot or any like food type illnesses, but like that was bad.
Oh, I've eaten myself sick like probably 1,000 times. I mean, that is just like that thing you experienced was a normal end of a day of binging for me. Like that,
Wow.
you just eat to the point of way past being uncomfortable. You are sick.
And that probably, I mean, not that I can remember my mindset in that exact moment necessarily, but after that, I probably really restricted myself on like not wanting to eat at all.
Oh, every time after a binge, you restrict, you fast or you purge, one or the other. You're gonna make up for those calories because God forbid you let your body have any sort of excess.
Yeah. And yeah, I would agree about us enabling each other. And yeah, I do think the walks were one of the positive things because, well, at least when we weren't overdoing it. I mean, there was a time I want to say I walked 18, 20 miles. Like that's a little extreme.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
we get it. like, like that's, I mean, and we also had more time too. We were younger, but
hmm
I yeah, I think we definitely, like you said, we were pushing each other, and my diet I think was getting a little bit better because I mean, we definitely had some, like we were starting to eat certain things healthier, but then we definitely had I would say an obscure mindset on the whole like the Pop Tart incident.
Oh my God. So disordered.
and,
The Pop
and
Tarts.
how we would only eat pot, like we would work out and then we would only eat like a pack of Pop Tarts to
Yeah.
replenish, which is an awful idea and not recommend.
I don't think there's a single nutrient in
No,
that Pop Tart. I don't think there's a single thing your body can use to repair from that
and
workout.
I actually do remember wake because I want to say I don't wake up in the middle of the night to like pee or like really anything too much. Like I can for the most part sleep soundly, but whenever I would know, like whenever we did that, I would wake up in the middle of the night so hungry, and then it would be this battle in the middle of the night of do I just start eating a bunch of things to shut my body up, or do I not? Like
Yeah.
what do I do? And it was yeah, definitely a battle for years.
hmm Yeah, same.
I think since we stopped there, we're gonna take another quick commercial break. So we'll be right back. And we are back. So we were talking about how since we grew up together and went through these similar things, we kind of enabled one another. We were talking about that a little bit. Let's get a little bit more positive on our journey and talk about how we are handling things now.
Yeah, that sounds good. One thing, I'll segue into that. One thing I want to just go over quickly
Oh,
is
yeah.
the evolution of my eating disorder, just so when I talk about how I'm living today, it will, I guess, make more sense. But
Okay.
so just to quickly recap, so I was suffering from anorexia, and I didn't start having any binges for the first good while when I started my freshman year of college, which is why I was able to get all the way down to 126 pounds. But once I hit 126 pounds, I remember I was going to a Chinese buffet, and I remember the date. It was May 15th was my first binge. I don't remember the year, but it was May 15th. And I remember going there, and that was the first time I heard the binge voice. And anyone who suffered from binge eating disorder or any eating disorder, honestly, you have a second voice in your mind that sounds exactly like the one you talk to yourself in. And it was telling me you should eat because you've been so good lately. And I mean, like, if you just ate bad one day, like, that's not the end of the world. You just get on track tomorrow. And I was, I went to this buffet knowing I was only going to eat like salads, like greens with nothing on them, just so I could eat something while I was there. And I was like, I'm not going to have more than 500 calories worth of salad, or, I might have a little bit of chicken. And I remember this voice was relentless. It wouldn't stop. And I finally gave in. And I was like, you know what? Yeah, one day I'll just do it one time. No big deal. And I had my first binge. I ate everything that I wanted. I had all of the chicken, all the beef, all the cakes, all the stuff, all the ice cream, everything there. And I ate myself sick. I hated myself. I went home, my stomach looked pregnant. I was
Uh,
huge, and I felt sick. I hated it. I hated that feeling. I was like, wow, how dumb am I to do that? I can't believe my willpower was so weak, which you learn over time. It's really not about willpower. And so that started the binge purge cycle was that day, because that whole weekend I binged, and I didn't get back on track until the Monday. And that was when I purged for the first time in the gym. I didn't eat anything, and I burned like 1,200 calories. So I was like, okay, that's like a net of like almost like, 2,400 calories. Perfect. That's going to put a dent in what I just did. And then the next day, I only ate 700 calories, and I burned 700 calories. Like, I didn't let myself go back to my norm for like 3 days. And even my norm was bad. Like, my norm was anorexic at best. So I maintained that for a couple of years, that cycle. I would binge all weekend, and then all week I would restrict, which made college hell, by the way, because every single Monday I felt fat, disgusting. I hated myself. I was sick from all the food I had eaten. You know, it almost felt like a hangover, which, you know, I've never drank alcohol, but like I feel like that is what a hangover would have felt like. You just feel groggy, sick, nauseous. The sun is too bright. You have a headache. Like, that's how I felt every Monday going to class. And I would feel like that for the first 3 days of the week, and I would feel normal the next 2 days, and then I would binge on the weekend. But
uh,
eventually, I wanted to get better because I went through like an 8 month stint, 8 or 9 month stint where Frank and I were really gonna get healthy. We were talking about being healthy. We started lifting weights. We were eating back calories that we burned at the gym. We weren't as neurotic. I felt in that time period, and it was a time period where I found the paleo diet, and that really helped me learn a little bit more about nutrition. I still needed a lot more to learn, but it was my first window, and I hadn't binged for many months, but I still want to lose weight. So with the binging, I went up to 145 pounds, which again is completely healthy for my height, but I still felt fat. So with paleo and not binging, I was able to go down all the way down to 135 pounds. So I definitely thought I was doing good, but then again on Christmas, that voice, the voice never went away. I had just been like able to fight it every day up until this day where on Christmas I finally said, screw it, I'm gonna eat all this candy. And I ate myself sicker than I had ever been in my life, because being paleo, you don't eat sugar, you don't eat grains, you don't eat seed oils, you only eat like meat and plants and nuts. And I got sicker than I'd ever felt in my life. Like, I was on the couch holding my stomach crying, and like my dad was like actually concerned. He couldn't believe how much pain I was in. He's like, yeah, maybe you just shouldn't eat that stuff anymore. But I've been to the next day and the next day, and Then I was binging on a semi-regular basis again. I still wasn't gaining weight. I was still maintaining with all my stuff. And, I would even go like a month or two without binging. Then I'd binge, and then a couple months would go by. But then eventually, I completely fell off the wagons. I stopped going to the gym, because I was like, I'm sick of having to like starve myself, and I'm sick of having to binge. So I'm gonna stop dieting, and I'm gonna heal from this binging, because the binging is the one thing that like really bothered me. I mean, anorexia, like that is really bad, but it was the binging that really killed me. So I stopped dieting, and I couldn't stop binging. So I went all the way from 135 pounds to 320. I gained a lot of weight binging. I couldn't stop. I started gaining weight in 2014, like I said earlier, and I binged and binged and binged until 2019. Literally, my last binge was like last year, like right before August. Like
Okay.
it went and went and went. So now I can segue into what I'm doing today, which is the carnivore diet. And if you've never heard of that, it's you only eat animal products, meat, fish, eggs, dairy. The gray area is spices and like stevia, which I use those. I'll eat an avocado. I'll use coconut cream, so it's full fat. Anyways, I know to people listening, it's like, oh well, that's still disordered because you're restricting still. You're restricting so many food groups. But you need to understand, for the first time in my life, I am completely nourishing my body of nutrients. I'm no longer focusing on calories. I don't count calories anymore. I eat to satiation every single day. And I no longer have the binge voice in my head. It's completely gone. I no longer have to wake up and fight a voice and argue all day long, having panic attacks, because as soon as that voice starts talking, I'm in fight flight mode. Like, I gotta make a decision, I gotta make it fast. And it's the most uncomfortable feeling in the world to sit like that. And I could sit like that for 12 hours from when I wake up to when I go to bed. I could be feeling that way. It's the only relief being sleep. And I'll tell you, it's really hard to make it that long. You're probably going to binge just to get that, just to not feel bad anymore, not to feel that fight or flight response, not to feel like you're in danger. With this way of eating carnivore, I'm able, I have a sense of calm and peace. I feel nourished. I feel safe. Just like internally, like my body feels safe. And so that has been the biggest change. And I started my carnivore diet August 1st of last year, and I was at 255 pounds because I would go through a stint of a diet, and then I'd start binging. And so with all that, I went from like 320 to 255. And now, for the first time in like almost a decade, I'm under 200 pounds again, and I haven't worked out. I haven't restricted calories. There are many days where I'm sure I eat like a crazy amount of meat. Like, there are days where I wake up and I'm like, this is a feasting day, which is a big difference from binging, because binging is an uncontrollable urge to eat. You're not making a choice. It is, you are not in the driver's seat. You're not controlling it, and you don't stop. Whereas some days I'm like, I want to have 2 pounds of steak and I'm going to eat it. And, sometimes I finish it, sometimes I don't. I don't eat myself till I'm sick anymore. There's a big difference there. And I mean, there's a quarantine happening right now. And of course I've eaten a little bit more meat than I probably need. And I haven't gained a pound, because there's just something about feeding your body a nutrient dense diet of everything it needs. It's going to uptake all of that. Your body, I wish I knew this when I started counting calories, but your body cannot be measured in numbers. Calories in, calories out isn't actually a thing. It's about the types of food you're eating and the type of nutrients you're eating. And it's about, controlling your blood sugar, and are your hormones in balance? Are you sleeping at night? Like, all those things, all your lifestyle factors, those are what are going to contribute to weight loss or weight gain, not calories in, calories out. I wish I knew that so long ago. But yeah, that is That's what I'm doing today. I finally have a proper relationship with food. I feel like I am normal. I don't have a disordered voice anymore. I don't have like this eating disorder sitting on my shoulder. And I move, I don't even think about food anymore. I just move through the day. Like I feel like everyone who hasn't had to suffer with an eating disorder is like this. Like I just wake up and my first thought isn't about my diet or my food. It's just like I wake up and I'm like, cool, I'm awake. Let's start the day. I feel normal, I guess, for the first time in my life. And I'm
which is
finally,
great.
yeah, and I'm finally going to be at a healthy weight. My goal is what it should have been all along, like, 150 pounds, and I'm not rushing it. I'm letting my body heal because I know I have like, zinc deficiencies and I did have anemia and, I'd have dark circles under my eyes because of my deficiencies. So like, I'm also focusing on healing, which I never cared about before. I only cared about being skinny. And I think the one last thing I'll say is losing weight this time around is way different than it was counting calories because even though I was 126 pounds, I did have stomach fat still. I didn't have abs. I had a little pooch that wouldn't go away, and
Yeah.
I was already severely underweight. And I think it's because your body, when you're starving yourself, the last thing it's going to do is burn fat. It's going to burn everything else because fat is essential to keep you alive. And if it thinks you're in a famine, it won't burn it. It's going to burn your muscle. That's why even if your legs are skinny, they'll still look fat to you. It's because all your muscle is gone and you're just stuck with like cellulite. You need to have muscle to look like aesthetic, I guess I would say. But not, you don't even gotta go that crazy. It's just you need to have you need, if you want your body to like lose fat proportionately, which for the first time in my life, I'm losing fat all over evenly. I'm not just losing it from my arms and legs like it's been in the past. And it's because my body isn't perceiving a famine right now. So I'm actually losing weight in a very good way. Like it's, my legs are losing it at the same time for my stomach. And, I'm really grateful for that because I'm not seeing like a fat body in the mirror anymore. I feel like I'm seeing myself true for the first time. And I think that is a lot to do with being nourished and actually losing weight, losing body fat more accurately in a healthy way. But yeah, that's what I'm doing today. It's the carnivore diet.
And there's probably a good chance that we'll have a podcast episode on it because I want to learn more and more about that.
Oh, I'd love to. I love it. I talk to my husband about it all the time. Like, he knows I love talking about it.
And you made a lot of great points. I wanted to interject, and I was like, no, and then you'd make another one, and I'm over in the corner going, yeah, yeah, yeah. But I'm happy you mentioned the numbers, and well, I'm happy you mentioned everything, but I'm happy that you mentioned the numbers and the thing about us having because we both would focus so much on that little pouch on our stomach and like we used to call it skinny fat, I remember.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And but I am really happy you mentioned the numbers because I think that's what people get so focused like ourselves on that where we step on a scale or we do certain equations that in my opinion aren't my favorite like BMI and stuff that
Oh my God.
don't
Yeah.
would that could be a whole nother discussion
Oh,
probably.
for sure. For sure.
And I just realized too, I don't know if you knew in the DSM-5, they for at least for anorexia nervosa disorder, they have how they identify specifications, they use certain BMI numbers, which I think is wrong,
Oh my
honestly,
God. There's so
because
much. Oh
yeah,
no.
like there's important information that's missing, and I think that's what made the numbers worse for us and made us so fixated on, oh my God, well, this number tells us we're overweight when we were not.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, context matters. And, something that BMI doesn't measure is muscle to body fat
Yes.
ratio. So there could be a dude who is like 250 pounds, but he could have a six pack.
Yeah.
There's nuance to these things. I mean, we could have a whole podcast literally about the downfalls of BMI and diet culture in general and like the recommendations, the standard American diet, dietitians, like, oh, you could go. There's so many pitfalls because everything's so generalized.
season two is gonna all be health and fitness.
Oh, have me on, baby. I got so much to say.
I love talking about that stuff too, but
Yeah.
we won't go too in depth right now.
Yeah.
To close everything up, do you have any advice that you would give to others struggling with an eating disorder?
Yeah, I definitely have some advice I can give. I'll give it to two camps of people. The people who want to embark on losing some weight and to people who are actually suffering with eating disorders. So to the people who just want who are looking into losing some weight, be very mindful about it because you might not think you're susceptible to an eating disorder, but you could develop an eating disorder. And I'll tell you
Yeah,
what, when you're in it, you might not even know you have it. I didn't know I was anorexic for a long time. So you need to be very mindful. And I think so to the people who are wanting to lose some weight, you need to focus on your nutrients and you need to focus on how your day looks. You need to keep your stress, you need to focus on keeping your stress down. You need to focus
yes,
on getting good sleep, following the circadian rhythm, which means going to bed around 10, waking up around 6, and obviously if your day allows it. You need to focus on getting some sunlight and eating nutrient dense food. And you don't have to be on the carnivore diet to obtain that. The only thing I will say is you do need some animal products in your life to reach optimal health. I'm sorry, vegans. I don't think your diet is optimal long term. I do think it is a sort of fasting diet, which leads to a lot of disordered behaviors. But if you want to be someone who eats eggs and salmon and a ton of fruit and veggies, all the way to someone who's carnivore, anywhere in that spectrum, you're probably going to be looking pretty good. You just want to look at those, you want to make sure you focus on getting nutrients. You don't want to be depleted in anything because I will tell you, if you're not getting your nutrients, you will have a voice telling you to eat. And it is because your body is doing everything it can to not be in a famine. Your body will perceive dieting as a famine. So don't eat like you're in a famine. Eat to satiation, and move a little bit more and focus on having a well-structured day and regulating your hormones and like I said, sleeping good and any do you have any do you have any leaky gut or any do you have like a candida overgrowth? Like these are things you need to look at. And restricting your calories, if you have these issues present, you're not going to lose any weight. You're just probably going to get fatter the more you restrict. So I think the biggest thing I can say to people embarking on dieting, do not restrict and do not, calories. I mean, if you want to track macros, maybe, but I wouldn't do it in the beginning. I would wait many, many months. I'd make sure your relationship with food is super solid before you start
yeah.
tracking anything because it's a slippery slope. And I was the calorie counting queen. Okay. Like I was on my fitness pal. I had journals. I could do I'm really bad at math, but oh, that mental math for those calories I could do in a second. And yeah, Frank knows me in math. Like,
And Steph knows me in math. I love
yeah,
it.
Frank's really good at math. There's
I was probably a prince in calorie counting.
yeah. Oh, but anyways, yeah, it's a slippery slope. And again, I was a calorie counting queen and I don't count a single calorie. I never thought I could say those words, but I listen to my body. And if there's a day where I'm like, today's a feasting day, I'm going to enjoy it. I'm going to eat all the meat I want. I don't care. I'm still able to be mindful and listen to myself. And I understand that the fact that I kind of want to eat more today is probably an indication that my body wants to eat more that day. So that's something to keep in mind. If you're constantly having to have willpower and you're constantly fighting yourself on your diet, you're probably eating too little and you need to feed your body. And now to the people who are already suffering from eating disorders, the advice is kind of similar. You're nutrient deprived, you're not eating a nutrient dense diet, and you need to focus on the nutrients. Like that's the best thing I can say. You need to eat a nutrient dense diet and hey, animal foods have every single thing the human body needs in the correct ratios. Whether you want to have an ounce of liver a day as a multivitamin, or you can order some desiccated liver powder pills and take a supplement that way. And then you get some proper fatty protein. You need your fat soluble vitamins. You know, you need that cholesterol for your brain, especially, you know, in eating disorders and mental illness. Guess what? Cholesterol is one of the best things for your brain. So, you know, have a couple eggs here and there. I mean, it can go a long way. So I guess, you know, to sum that all up, it's all about nutrient density and making sure your body doesn't think it's in a famine, because you're going to keep having those urges if it's perceiving that.
You just reminded me too, when you were talking about the cholesterol, that I think one thing that messes people up too, that maybe messed us up through growing up and everything, is all of it always seems like a different diet every month type thing, and that
Oh, yeah.
you have to do certain things and you can't do these things, and this, like, there's definitely been some misconceptions throughout the whole crisis and everything. And
Oh, yeah.
I I forgot the other thing. I forgot my other point, but I had another point there. But yeah, oh, I just remembered that. I think also, or at least something that I would say to people, is that I feel like some people are so focused on their diet, and then there's some people, and then there's the majority of people too that don't even think twice about what they're putting into their body, and that
Mm-hmm.
there's kind of this happy medium that we have to find. And I think for the people who aren't really tracking it, and they kind of like, maybe they've already like given up, like they don't think they're ever going to be in better shape than what they are now, I think their mindsets might be this whole, right from when they wake up, they just feel like life is so busy and overwhelming, and they're not putting enough of themselves first, because
Yeah.
there's certain things like, oh, like deadlines at your job or whatever, like these things that honestly, yeah, like they might matter to the company you work for or whatever, but what's most important is your health, and you can't do those things without your health.
Exactly.
So
Yeah, it's important.
I think, yeah, I think if you just slow your mind and body down just a second, just to think about things for a second, think, okay, like what's for breakfast? Like just take it one day, 1 minute at a time, to just, so that you're not just on this kind of like on this auto mode where it's like, oh, I always get fast food after I get out of work or something. So it's not so that you're breaking those patterns, kind of like how we had to start breaking our disordered patterns. We have to
Oh,
realize,
for sure.
hey, this is bad, and we're gonna end up dead if we keep doing it.
Yeah, I think I think something important that you just said is breaking those pathways. So your brain has this amazing ability called neuroplasticity, where you can, if you stop following a habit and then you replace it with a new habit, your brain will literally form a new pathway, because you know, our brain does go on autopilot. It does. So, you know, you might have to be mindful for 6 months or a year and build those new pathways, but know that it's possible. You know that you can actually come out of, whether it's an eating disorder or whether you're just overweight and you want to be healthier. It's completely possible. You know, the human brain is amazing. It's an amazing machine. You can build those new pathways and be a completely different person if you want to. You just got to put the work in. It's hard to not be on autopilot. It's hard to be mindful, but you can do it.
I agree. And yeah, I feel like we definitely could keep talking about this more, but I think we have to wrap it up at that.
Yeah, for sure.
There's so much, I know there's so much I feel like we could say, but
I know.
I want to I want to thank today's sponsor for sponsoring this episode, and I want to thank Stephanie Lynn so much for being a guest star. So
No
thank you.
problem. I had fun.
The same. I want to thank Sakura HZ for doing the intro music for this season, and I want to thank Tokyo Music Walker for doing the outro that you're going to hear after we shut up. And I also want to thank each and every one of you for listening. And the whole point of the show is that hopefully at least someone out there gets something out of this. So,
Yeah.
yeah, so that's it. I hope all of you guys have a great day, and Yeah, take care. Bye.